Hi, and welcome back to Glassboxed writing automated RSpec tests. Today we're going to have a look at how to handle pop-ups or alert windows. We're also going to look at how to handle external windows. So let me explain what that means. On our Zoo site, if I go to the contact page, and if I just try and press this send button on this message form, I get what's known as an alert or a pop-up. Alerts and pop-ups are effectively used to basically tell the user about something without further allowing them to progress. So in this instance, I'm effectively just trying to fill in a form and go to the next page. So if I just fill in with some random data and I press send again, it gives me a message. And if I fill in all but a couple, then you can see that I'm getting these error messages, or in other words, I'm getting a pop-up. So this is what a pop-up is, or an alert box is. Handling additional windows is basically where you have a second window opened as a result of doing something on your current browser. So for instance, if I click on this link here, this opens up another window. So today we're going to look at how to manage these pop-ups so that we can close them and carry on, as well as how to open a window, get the driver to look at this window, do something, close the window, come back to the current browser, and then continue from there. I've written a really basic test, doesn't do anything fancy, opens up an empty Firefox browser, navigates to the web app, and as part of the after method, it just quits the instance of the browser. So the first thing we want to do, because we navigate to effectively the root URL, what we want to do is click on contact, and then just click on this send button, in essence generating an alert pop-up, and then seeing how we can handle that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect this element to see what I can do to click on it. So it has an ID, so I'm just going to use the ID to click on it. I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on this. So it's driver find element by ID. I'm going to click on this value and then click. Then I want to do the same thing by clicking on this send button here. So I'm just going to inspect this as well. So this also has an ID with the value of submit message. So I'm just going to copy that in there. Right. So now when we run this, what will happen is this will navigate to this particular site, click on the contact, then click on send, and then do nothing else. So let's make sure this works first by running this test really quickly. Okay, so we know our test works so far, and we saw that the pop-up did actually appear, or the alert box did appear when we clicked send, but obviously we're not doing anything in our test to handle that. So let's try and write some code for it now. So how do you actually get your driver to effectively switch its control over the current browser and onto the alert box? Well, we can use a method that the driver provides us with called the switch to method. What the switch to method does is it allows us to switch between different instances of alerts or windows or other browsers, various things. So how do you actually use the switch? Well, to do it, you go driver dot, and we use the switch to method followed by alert. So what this will do is this will switch to that alert. Again, let's save this. So here we're saying is we want the driver to switch to the alert, and we want to save after we switch to the alert in this alert box variable. We can now act on this alert box variable. So one thing we can do is we can say puts alertbox.text. This should effectively just print out the text of the box. We can then also say alert.accept. Oops, I meant to say alert box.accept. and what the accept does is it basically clicks on the button. Usually alert boxes only have a single button on them. So we're just going to run this just to make sure that we are able to switch to the alert box, save this information in this variable here, print out the text of the alert box, and then effectively close the alert box by clicking on the OK button via this accept method. So let's quickly run this and just make sure this works. Okay, so when we tried to submit the form, we actually did get a message saying name field is empty, and it looks like the switch to the alert box was successful in that it was able to print out the message from the alert box and then close it as well. So let's go a little bit further and try and generate multiple alert boxes just to make sure we're doing it properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to this page, click send, and we'll get this alert. What we're going to do next is we're going to type in some information and then click send again, and this time we should get a different alert, therefore confirming that we certainly saw the first one, we accepted it, we then effectively fixed it to make sure that same alert doesn't happen again. We will then click on the send button again to generate a different alert error message, therefore confirming that we were definitely able to handle our alert box. So since we're going to act on this name and address input fields, let's just find out what their values are. So this has a name attribute with a value of name underscore field, and the address has an address underscore field. Okay, so let's use that. So after we've clicked on accept, what we want to do is effectively now click on, or rather not click on, send some data to the name field. So it was an ID, it was by name, and we want to act on the name field, and let's just use the send keys, and let's just say test name value. Okay, and then we want to basically click on the submit message again, or rather the submit button again, and once we've done that we'll get another alert with a different error message. So we can just copy paste this, and now when we click on submit we will get a different alert box with a different message because we've satisfied this first alert. So here we should get two error messages: name field is empty followed by email field is empty. So again, let's run this and see what happens. Okay, perfect. So we got this first error message which said name field is empty, which was effectively here. We were then able to accept or close that alert, send some keys to that relevant field, click on the submit button again, and then get a different alert box which is confirmed here by printing out the other error message. So this is how you effectively switch to alert boxes and handle them. Now I've only printed the text and accept, but there are various other things you can do. This is not the exhaustive list of what you can do with an alert box. There are a couple of other things you can do, but getting the text and usually accepting it are probably the most common things people would do with an alert box. You've got to understand that alert boxes are there to just tell the user some information. It really isn't there to allow the user to effectively generate data or look at various other things. It's just to basically really quickly tell the user that something's gone wrong and it needs your attention to resolve. So this is how you effectively handle alert boxes. So the next thing I said we would do is look at the concept of switching to another window when one is opened by some action performed on the site here on. So in this case, if we click on terms, it opens up another window. We want to then switch the control of driver from, say, this browser here to this browser here, or this window here, do something on this window, and then effectively switch the control back. Another way to put it is, we want to get to a point where we want to be able to switch control between two different browsers, or to be more specific, two different windows in the same browser at any given point in time in our test. So let's look how we can achieve that. So really quickly, I'm just going to write a new test. Okay. So this time, because this is a fresh new it, which means this will be the starting point. So let's just collapse this, because we don't really want to look at this and drive focus away. So what do we want to do? Well, what we really should do is, if we write this out in text form, is get the current window we are in control first, do something to open a new window, and then possibly get all current open windows, maybe find any new windows open, and then switch to the window of our choice, and then do some magic on that window. So I think logically this is probably how we want to break down how we get control of different windows. So the first thing we want to do is basically make sure that when we get to, say, this page, which is the starting point, we want to make sure that we've somehow saved control of this window. That way, if we save the control of this window, if we switch to other windows, we can always come back because we'll have some kind of reference point. So let's do that. How can we do that? Well, driver actually gives us the ability to get the current window that we're handling via the method window handle. What this does is this gives you the current window you have in control. So if we just say main window, if you like, is equal to driver.windowHandle, this is effectively saving, or rather this is acting as a reference to our main window or to our home page, if you like. So the next thing we said we want to do is do something so that we actually open a new window. So the next thing we want to do is effectively just click on this link here. So let's inspect this, see if it has anything useful we can use to click on it. So it's got an ID with a value of foot term. Alright, so we can use that. So that's quite straightforward. Driver.find element ID, and then click. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is now get all the windows which are currently open. So similarly to finding an element using find element, if we use find elements, it gives us 0 or 1 or more than 1. The same perspective applies, or the same mechanism applies when we try and do this, in that if we say get window handles, this would actually give us all the current windows that we have open. So if we now say all windows, for instance, this now has a reference to every single window we currently have open at that point in time. That's really important to note. This will give us a reference to all the current windows that are open at this particular point in time in the test. If we then try to use this, say somewhere else, after opening 4 or 5 other windows, this will only have access to the windows that were currently open at that point in time. So just something to note. This could be a gotcha for people who are trying to do this for the first time and opening multiple windows and then trying to find out why this doesn't have access to those windows. But anyway, back on track. This is how we effectively get all references to all windows and save it in one place. Now, since we now have all windows, we can now use a for each loop to effectively look through all of these windows, and if our main window isn't the current window selected, we can then switch to that window, or rather we can effectively create a new variable saying this new window will be the window that we want to switch to. So this sounds a bit confusing. Let me explain. What we want to do is basically say, look through all the current windows which are open, and if you happen to find a window which we currently aren't in control of, I want you to save that window's value in a brand new window variable, so that if I want to access any given window, I can do that by accessing that brand new window variable. So how do we do that? Well, we can use a for each loop, like I said. So we can say all windows dot each, and let's just say the element we want to look through, we'll name it window, and let's just say if our main window, so if our main window is not equal to whatever window we have open at that point in time, then let's just say create a new window which will be equal to window. So what we're saying here is we're going to look through all elements inside this window, and each one we're going to treat as a window. If our main window is not equal to the current window, then we're going to create a brand new variable which will be globally accessible in this particular class, and we're going to save the reference to whatever window we currently don't have open. That's how we effectively, if you like, just get more references to windows which are opened somewhere else which we aren't using. Now the question is, I've saved the reference to my main window, I've saved reference to all current windows, I've found, or I've theoretically tried to write a really quick loop which allows us to save windows in a variable which I am currently not in control of. How can I now use this information? Well, if you want to switch to that window, what we can do is we can say driver switch to, and this time instead of saying alert like we have done here, what we want to do, instead of switching to an alert, we want to switch to a window. And here we're going to say the new window we want to switch to. So in this case it was new window. So this, because this now has a reference to this new window, or in other words it's got a reference to the window that we currently aren't in control of, we have now, by doing this, switched to that window. And if we want to say switch back, then we can just do the same. We can say driver dot switch to window, and here we can say main window. So what this is now doing is effectively switching to a window which we currently aren't in control of, and then switching back to our main window which we've saved here as a reference, as the very first step. So just to make sure that we've definitely switched, what we'll do is we'll just do a basic puts with some information relevant to that new window which isn't available in the main window. So let's do that. If we go back and let's click on the terms. Okay, so we've actually got a pretty good candidate. This text here, terms of the site, doesn't appear on this main window anywhere. So let's try and print out this information. So I'm just going to quickly inspect it. Okay, so it's actually in a H1 tag, which is pretty good because there aren't any other H1 tags in this block of code, so we can use that information. So what I'm going to say is driver.find element by tag name h1.text. So in essence I'm just going to print that text out, and I'm also going to try and close that window if you like. After that we're going to switch back to the main window, and again let's just do a really basic puts as well. So I'm just going to say puts driver find element ID let's get the contact link and its text. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to try and switch to that window. We're going to print out that security terms text, whatever it was. We're going to then try and close that browser. Notice we're going to close the browser, not quit the instance of driver, which means our instance should still be active. We'll then switch back to the main window. We have to switch back, because if we don't switch back, driver still thinks that we still have control of this window. So we need to switch back, and after we switch back, we're just going to confirm we've switched back by trying to print out the contact link text. So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, perfect. It's actually done exactly what we expected. That might have run a bit too quick for you, but what basically happened was you opened the browser, you then clicked on the terms, it then printed out this line of text, it closed that terms window, and then it printed out this contact text, proving that we were definitely able to switch to the window we just opened, did some magic on it, close it, and then switch back to our main window, and then continue with our test. So in this video we've basically looked at how to handle alerts and how to handle windows using the same method, i.e. this switch to method. It's a really basic method that allows you to have greater control over how to handle multiple windows or alerts, because when you have a web application or some kind of website, if you like, you do get various pop-ups, and you will have to at some point test to make sure that the pop-up you get has certain messages, or windows you get have certain confirmation actions, and so on. So it's important that you understand how to switch to something else, or how to give your driver control over another window and still keep the focus of driver intact without losing it. And that's it for this video, folks. If you enjoy my videos and find they bring you some new knowledge or insight into writing WebDriver RSpec tests, then please subscribe and rate. If you have any questions or video suggestions, then please leave a comment below. Many thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao.